A man's eyes fly open as a voice shouts, declaring the end of an engagement with someone named Alice. In that instant, a torrent of memories floods his mind, memories of a past life as a Japanese person. He finds himself standing in a grand hall, disoriented, wondering if he has arrived at a party. He surveys the room, noting the suspicious silence that has fallen over the assembled guests. His gaze settles on a young woman with long, flowing blonde hair, standing amidst a bed of roses. A jolt of recognition strikes him. The silver hair, the bright green eyes, she is Alice Misty, the Duke's daughter and fiancée to the first prince. More importantly, he realizes she is the villainess from Lovely Princess, a romance game he played in his past life. He then remembers his own role in that story. He is ex-Lost, son of a knight captain, and infamously the least popular character in the game's official polls. Looking across the hall, he sees the prince and his followers, all familiar faces from the game. He hears the prince's declaration ringing in his ears, a vow that he will make Alice remember what she has done to a girl named Maria. The first prince of the Landry Kingdom, Mace Landry, stands beside Maria, publicly accusing Alice. He claims she encouraged other nobles to ostracize Maria, laid traps for her in the shadows, and even hired an assassin. X notes internally that the Alice from the game never went to such extremes. As the prince demands he say something, X considers the situation. He wonders if this is a scenario where a reincarnated heroine is framing the villainess to avoid a bad ending. Could Maria also be someone from his former world? The prince confirms his intention to break the engagement. Seizing the moment, X steps forward, gently takes Lady Alice's hand, and, looking directly at her, makes a shocking request. "Please marry me, Lady Alice." His words hang in the stunned silence of the hall. Alice, Maria, and Prince Mace all stare, their faces a mask of utter shock and disbelief. He continues, his voice steady. He admits he may not be worthy of her, but he likes her a great deal. He recalls having liked her character even before regaining his memories, wanting to protect her from her sad fate. He addresses the prince directly. "If your highness abandons her, please leave her to me." Alice's face flushes as he makes his final, heartfelt declaration. "I love you with all my heart." His companions cry out, asking if he has gone mad, noting that his former self would have easily fallen for Maria. But X is lost in the moment, captivated by Alice's adorable reaction and filled with an overwhelming desire to embrace her. He directly confronts Maria, asking if she feels any satisfaction in falsely accusing an innocent person. With Prince Mace looking on in shock, he questions if she has any shame for discrediting Lady Alice simply to get closer to his highness. The prince, enraged, demands to know what authority X has to speak this way, threatening to exile him along with Alice. Unfazed, X gestures towards the throne, reminding the prince that this party is hosted by the king himself, and that His Majesty's silence thus far should be telling. He continues, speculating that the king is aware of the prince's recent actions and is testing his worthiness to rule. With that, he declares the matter finished, turns to a stunned Alice, and says it is time for them to leave. As Prince Mace shouts for the guards to stop them, X bids him a simple goodbye. As he and Alice walk away, he glances back at the hesitating guards. He poses a critical question. Is their loyalty sworn to the prince or to the king? He notes that while they could capture him under a direct order from the king, those loyal to the crown should not act on their own whims. From his throne, the king speaks with quiet authority, simply telling his son to let them leave. Prince Mace stares in disbelief, calling out to his father as he watches X lead Alice down the grand staircase, his plans completely thwarted. Now on a quiet balcony, away from the court, X apologizes to Alice for involving her in the situation. He asks her to please call him by his name, as she used to. Alice, looking down, agrees and asks the same of him, though she still seems hesitant. She formally apologizes again, but he refuses to accept it. He insists that she has done nothing wrong. The fault, he explains, is his own for not understanding her feelings, which led to this entire problem. Alice recalls the prince's cruelty. He had other options. He could have simply annulled their engagement or even made her a concubine. Instead, he chose public humiliation. She remembers him asking for her true feelings and her simple, affirmative reply. Returning to the present, X gazes at her and confesses plainly, "I love you." He vows to always be on her side, no matter what happens. He wants her to be happy and says that if she loves another, he will support her through his own tears. But if possible, he trails off, taking her hand. He asks her to spend the rest of her life with him, to give him all of herself. He pleads for her to let him love and protect her forever. Alice is stunned, questioning if someone like her, a defective woman discarded by the prince, could be loved by him. X immediately refutes this, calling her a treasure and perfect in his eyes, regardless of what others think. He holds her hands gently, his gaze unwavering as he confesses his deep love for her. He promises that even if she does not love him, even if the entire world were to hate him, he would still love her and would cut down anyone who dared to belittle her with his own sword. Alice looks up at him, completely taken aback by the intensity of his declaration. He then kneels before her, a formal gesture of utmost sincerity. Looking up at her, he asks again, calling her by her full name, "Miss Alice Misty, will you be my wife? I love you." Her quiet yes hangs in the air, and the realization washes over him. She accepted. He had been certain she would reject such a direct confession. He understands now that from the moment he regained consciousness, his feelings were not for a character in a story, but for Alice as a person. It was, in other words, love at first sight. His resolve solidifies with the internal vow to love and protect Alice forever, a feeling he knows will never change. Just then, a stern voice cuts through the moment, calling out to Alice. The man is Reed Misty, the head of the Misty ducal family, Alice's father. Reed Misty approaches, acknowledging that it has been some time and remarking on how much X has grown. After X offers a formal greeting, the Duke's demeanor shifts, demanding to know if X has something to say to him. Without hesitation, X declares that he has just proposed to Miss Alice, and she has accepted. He then makes his formal plea. Please, give me Miss Alice. The Duke listens, then coldly questions if these are appropriate words from someone who has caused his daughter so much suffering. X readily admits that he has been a negative influence in her life, and that he knowingly ignored her pain. But that time is over, he declares, vowing to protect her with his entire being from this moment forward. The Duke's only response is a terse, I see. In a blur of motion, Duke Misty draws his sword and lunges. The attack is blindingly fast, catching Alice completely by surprise as she cries out. As the blade rushes toward him, X internally notes that his body has felt much lighter ever since he was reincarnated. The attack is deadly serious. Though his physical reactions are now enhanced, X finds that his mind can still process the situation calmly, allowing him to handle the threat. He stands his ground, unmoving. The Duke's blade stops just short of his throat, the tip gleaming inches from his skin. The test of nerve is met with perfect stillness. Lowering his sword, Duke Misty acknowledges that X was able to see the trajectory of his blade, remarking that it is to be expected from the son of the country's strongest knight commander. Visibly strained but resolute, X dismisses the praise as too much and asks again, Please, give me Miss Alice. He listens as Duke Misty lays out his suspicions. The Duke believes that the son of a viscount proposing to a duke's daughter is a calculated move for the lost family to gain influence, enough to make even the king take notice. X, however, remains resolute, assuring the Duke that he has a plan. The Duke gives a final, chilling warning. If X ever makes Alice cry, he must be prepared to die. X simply offers his thanks. As the Duke departs, Alice rushes to his side, her voice filled with concern, asking if he is hurt. He reassures her that he is fine, though he feels he showed her an embarrassing side of himself. She quickly refutes this, insisting he was very cool. Her earnestness touches him, and he thinks to himself how adorable she is. He tells her he's glad the engagement has been acknowledged, adding that he was prepared for them to elope if necessary. The word elope catches her attention. She muses on the idea, comparing it to a romantic tale of a knight running away with a princess. The thought brings a blush to her cheeks, as she finds it rather cute. Coming back to the present, she asks him what they will do now. In response to her question, he calmly presents her with 3 options. The first is to return home. The second is to stay at his house. He pauses, holding up 3 fingers before revealing the third, to spend the night with him in a cabin he has prepared. The suggestion leaves Alice utterly flustered. Blushing intensely, she insists that the first option is the only possibility. She stammers, trying to explain that it isn't that she doesn't want to be with him, but that it's simply too soon and she isn't mentally prepared. He watches her, completely charmed by her flustered state, thinking to himself what an adorable creature she is. He smiles, understanding her position. He agrees to escort her to her residence for the day, adding that he wishes to formally introduce himself the next day so they can continue their plans. As for what those plans entail, he leaves it to her imagination. Later, as he returns to his own home, a voice calls out, welcoming him back. The man who greets him is his father, Vector Lost, the commander of the Knights of the Kingdom of Landry. He expresses his relief that X has regained consciousness and commends his son's recent actions, stating he acted correctly as a knight protecting a lady. X, however, clarifies his motives. He explains that he did not intervene for Miss Alice's sake as a knight, but because he loves her deeply as a woman. His father seems to understand, noting that he had been informed the young lady had captivated his son. Later, his companions question him about the meeting. One expresses disbelief that the formidable Duke Misty would grant his permission. X replies with a smile that he simply asked him normally, though he casually adds that the Duke nearly split him in 2 with his sword. A memory of his father's promise surfaces. Vector had assured him he would help convince the Duke and would support his son's feelings. The conversation with his father continues. Vector asks if X now intends to join the Knights after graduation, to which X confirms he does. His father observes that this is a change of heart, as X was previously dissatisfied with this path and had no desire to join. X explains his new resolve. His happiness with Alice is his priority, and he is willing to do anything for it. This includes joining the Knights and inheriting the title of the Lost Viscount House upon his graduation next year. He gazes out the window, his thoughts turning to the fallout from his actions. The prince has lost his right to the throne, and his former companions, including the girl who had been with the prince, have been arrested by order of the king. He suspects she must have gone mad from the turn of events. He anticipates that their hatred will now be directed at him, as they likely see him as the main culprit. While he feels he did nothing wrong, he cannot accept the happiness built upon Alice's misfortune. He steels his resolve, vowing to protect Alice from any future attempts at revenge. The day after his proposal, Lost arrives at the grand residence of the Misty family. He has come to formally greet the Duke and Duchess, but his true, primary reason for the visit is to see Alice. He finds her waiting. Alice greets him, thanking him for coming. He, in turn, thanks her for her help the previous night and states his earnest desire to be with her. Her smile prompts him to remark on how cute she is. When she asks if something is the matter, he explains that he was simply captivated by her smile, apologizing if he was rude. The word captivated leaves Alice momentarily speechless. He says it again, softly, she's so cute. A blush spreads across Alice's face as she manages a quiet thank you. He then turns to the matter at hand, stating he's glad for the opportunity to greet her parents, though he anticipates that dealing with her father might be difficult. He reassures her that once it is done, he will properly ask for her hand in marriage once more. He invites her for tea, an offer she happily accepts. As they walk through the manor, a woman's voice calls out his name. It is the Duchess Misty, standing beside the Duke, asking if X remembers her. He greets the Duchess warmly, complimenting her timeless beauty. She playfully chides him for his flattery, warning that her husband gets very jealous. X then formally addresses Duke Misty, thanking him for his hospitality the previous night. The Duke returns the greeting, stating it's good to see him well. The Duke's pleasantries continue as he asks if X slept well. X confirms that he did, adding that he was thinking of Lady Alice. Though the Duke's face is smiling, his eyes are cold and devoid of warmth. Now seated with both the Duke and Duchess, X explains that he has come to formally greet them both again, perhaps sensing the need to be direct after the Duke's subtle hostility. He continues, acknowledging that they have likely already received the formal proposal, but he felt it was necessary to convey his intentions in person. The Duchess reassures him, telling him he doesn't need to be so formal. He thanks Duchess Misty, noting that they will soon be family and that she is welcome to call him mother-in-law. The Duchess smiles warmly and agrees, finding it reassuring. However, Duke Misty interjects with a tight smile of his own, stating firmly that he has not yet accepted X and forbidding him from using the term father-in-law. He presses on to the main point, formally asking for permission to marry Lady Alice. The Duchess playfully teases her husband, suggesting he actually likes X-Kuan and that his lack of denial proves it, much to the Duke's annoyance. She then gives her own view, remarking on his straightforward proposal and recalling how Alice blushed bright red. The Duchess declares that if this is the path her daughter has chosen, she will respect her wishes and not oppose the union. The Duke's expression hardens. He warns X that he will show no mercy if Alice is made to cry. X accepts this, stating that it would be his responsibility and giving the Duke leave to kill him should it happen. The Duke acknowledges his resolve, but adds that Alice must not be the one to cry for him. X agrees. When questioned on his motives, his answer is unwavering. He wants Lady Alice to smile because he loves her. This declaration seems to satisfy the Duke, who concedes that it is natural to want to protect a loved one. He gives his silent approval on the condition that X can absolutely protect Alice. X bows his head and offers his sincere thanks. Elsewhere, Alice is lost in memories of her childhood. She recalls how X was her first love, how he helped her, and how he even proposed to her back then. Her reverie is interrupted by X's arrival. He is momentarily captivated by her serene beauty, thinking she looks like an angel or a goddess. He apologizes for the wait, explaining that he was having a meaningful discussion. When she asks about her father, X reports that the Duke's position hasn't changed since last night, before revealing the true purpose of his meeting. He has asked for her hand in marriage. The news leaves Alice utterly stunned, her teacup trembling in her hand. She processes words, surprised. X explained that her father had given a stern warning. If he ever made Alice cry, he would not be forgiven. Her mother, on the other hand, had simply stated she would respect Alice's wishes. X admitted he was present for the conversation, which is why he had been asked to address her mother so formally. Gathering her courage, she made a request of her own, asking if he could please call her by her name. He hesitated, questioning if it was truly appropriate to address her without honorifics. Alice then proposed a condition in return. Internally, X was overjoyed at the prospect. Her condition was simple. She wanted him to call her by her first name. With a gentle smile, X agreed, asking that she do the same and call him X. A blush crept across Alice's face as she quietly accepted. She beamed, thanking him. He, in turn, addressed her simply as Alice, sealing their new level of intimacy. He was completely overwhelmed by her radiant smile, internally struggling to maintain his composure in the face of such an incredibly cute creature. Forcing himself to stay calm, he quickly changed the subject, suggesting they have some tea and asking if she liked cookies. Alice readily agreed. A moment later, a platter of unfamiliar treats was presented to her. Alice noted that she had never seen the brand before, prompting X to reveal that he had made them himself. She looked at him in disbelief. She was visibly delighted by the revelation, exclaiming that she was incredibly happy and would certainly enjoy them. Seeing her reaction, X added that she didn't have to eat them if she didn't like them. As he watched her, he reflected on the cookies' quality. To a noble, the taste would be considered normal, but from the perspective of his past life, he knew they were exceptionally good. Alice simply thanked him again, and they prepared to eat. She took a sip of her tea, smiling as she remarked on how delicious it was. X agreed, his own expression softening as he enjoyed the quiet moment with her. He watched as Alice held up a cookie, her expression one of pleasant surprise. She asked if he had truly made them, and if they were to her liking. He confirmed that they were delicious and that he was glad she enjoyed them, privately noting that his cooking skills from a past life seemed to have been well received. She then asked him how he liked it, adding that she was happy to see him enjoying himself so much, though she admitted to feeling a little embarrassed. With a radiant smile, she declared the cookies were truly delicious. Seeing her so happy, X realized that her joy alone made all his effort worthwhile. A profound feeling struck him. He finally put a name to the feeling. For the first time in his life, he found a real person to be overwhelmingly cute. He mentally filed the precious memory away for safekeeping. He wished he could spend more time with her, but knew he couldn't stay long, as they both had school the next day. It was precisely because their time was limited, he mused, that these moments were so precious. Watching her happily eat his cookies and seeing her embarrassed, yet adorable, smile. The following day, they walked together through the school grounds. Murmurs followed them, with students noting that Lady Misty and Lord Lost were together, seemingly confirming the rumors about her broken engagement. X resolved to stop worrying about his supposed role and simply appreciate the cuteness of the girl beside him. She found the surrounding whispers a bit overwhelming, but he told her not to worry about the reactions of others. He declared that as long as it was clear to everyone that he loved her, there was no problem. His words made her blush. Their public display of affection sent a wave of excitement through the onlookers. They gasped in disbelief, pointing out that Duke Misty's daughter was blushing and exclaiming how in love the pair seemed. A small, confident smile played on his lips as he addressed the noisy crowd, telling them to be a bit quieter. Their quiet moment is shattered by an angry shout. The sudden interruption startles Alice, who looks away, embarrassed, as the newcomer demands their attention. He ignores the outburst, asking Alice when her classes end so they can spend time together. She replies that they finish around noon, but the stranger shouts again, insisting that X listen to him. Frustrated at being ignored, the stranger grabs X's shoulder. Reacting instantly, X twists the man's arm, eliciting a cry of pain. He warns him not to grab him, so suddenly as the man begs to be released. He releases his grip. The furious young man demands to be remembered, announcing himself as Fan Ractor of the Baron Ractor family. X simply looks back, questioning the name. He then asks plainly who he is, feigning complete ignorance. Fan reels back in disbelief, unable to comprehend that he has been forgotten. As Fan stands there, X's memory returns. He recalls this boy as a pitiful character who was in love with the heroine, Maria, but was completely ignored. Fan reminds him of his promise to help him win Maria's affection, and X quietly affirms it. He then confronts X, revealing that Maria was absent from school and is said to be locked in a cell. He demands to know what X has been doing while this was happening. X recalls the moment he agreed to help, remembering his thought that the heroine wouldn't be capable of such an act. Fan's anger seems to dissipate as he murmurs to himself. He explains that he has come to his senses and just confessed to the person he truly loves. He then admits he no longer cares about Maria and asks X to leave him alone with Alice. His composure shatters once more. He lunges forward, grabbing X by the uniform and roaring not to be messed with. He demands to know what Maria did to deserve her fate. Through it all, X maintains a calm, knowing smile as Alice watches, trembling. He maintains a smile and poses a question to Fan. He asks what one would do if a woman were falsely accuse someone in order to steal their fiancé, labeling such a person as the worst kind of scum. He turns to leave with Alice, suggesting they head to the classroom, but Fan Ractor calls out for them to wait. X sighs, turning back to face him. He makes his desire clear. He wants to enjoy his remaining school life with Alice, and he asks Fan not to interfere. He warns that if Fan cannot respect this, he will remove him by force. The threat hangs in the air, stunning Fan. X continues, explaining that Fan's interference is exactly what Maria attempted. Fan vehemently denies this, slapping X's hand away and insisting Maria is incapable of such actions. Unfazed, X replies that he is merely stating the facts, and suggests Fan seek confirmation from others if he remains doubtful. As they walk away, Alice expresses her concern, asking X if his handling of the situation was appropriate, given Fan's feelings for Maria. She reflects on the incident, acknowledging that while she did nothing wrong, she feels a need to apologize for her involvement, even though she played a role in what happened. He turns to her with a reassuring smile, affirming her thoughts. He then declares that he is the one who is truly happy to be her fiancé. Overjoyed by his words, Alice agrees, expressing her own happiness at their engagement. Internally, X is overwhelmed by Alice's charm, considering her cuteness to be a world treasure meant only for him, one he wishes to keep entirely to himself. His thoughts then shift back to Fan Ractor. He predicts the boy will likely interfere again. For Alice's sake, he resolves to handle the situation strategically. As X Lost and Alice Misty stand together, they are approached by a young man with silver-white hair. He addresses them by name, and X recognizes him immediately. This is Rince Landry, the second prince of the Landry Kingdom. This prince is the younger twin brother of Prince Mace. Unlike his brother, Rince is not a primary target for conquest in the world's story, appearing only in Mace's memories. He is known to be more talented and handsome than his older brother, a fact that paradoxically causes him to feel inferior, making him susceptible to the heroine's influence. In the past, he had always been friendly toward X. He greets them with a polite, good morning, before suddenly bowing deeply. With his head lowered, Prince Rince formally apologizes for all the trouble his brother caused him the day before yesterday. He remains bowed as X asks him to raise his head, insisting that the prince is not responsible. Rince disagrees, explaining that he knew of and witnessed Miss Misty's public condemnation. He firmly believes that if X had not been there to intervene, she would have faced much greater problems. As the prince speaks, Alice's mind drifts to the memory of that day. She recalls how X helped her and confessed his feelings, a moment that now fills her with immense happiness. She acknowledges to herself that she was indeed heartbroken when the engagement was broken. But now, with X by her side, she is truly happy. As if sensing her thoughts, X gently takes her hands in his. He looks into her eyes and makes a solemn vow, promising to protect her for the rest of his life. Alice, her heart soaring, readily accepts his promise. Their tender moment is interrupted by Prince Rince, who politely asks if he might speak with them. Startled, Alice quickly gives him permission to proceed. He doesn't waste time, stating that he would like to make a request of X. The prince then delivers a startling piece of news. He has become the crown prince, taking the place of his brother. He explains his reasoning directly. From now on, he will be responsible for protecting the country and will need strength to do so. Looking X straight in the eye, Prince Rince declares that he wants X to be that strength. He processed the prince's request. Prince Rince elaborated, explaining that X would likely succeed his father as the leader of the knights. He wanted X to protect the country not as a subordinate, but as a friend. X asked plainly if this meant the prince wanted him as a confidant. He questioned the prince's choice, asking, "Why me?" Prince Rince answered simply that it was because he trusted him. He added that he believed X would remain an ally of the country, so long as no harm came to Alice Misty. X's expression showed that he understood the implication. The prince continued, noting with a smile that X was not as foolish as his brother. He confessed that in the original plan, he had intended to protect Miss Misty himself, but circumstances had changed. His demeanor shifted abruptly. X declared firmly that he was against making Alice the queen, even for Prince Rince. He stated that he had already given up on that possibility and would find another candidate for the role. With that condition set, he agreed to be the prince's confidant, or whatever else was required, as long as Alice was not harmed. In response, Prince Rince thanked him and proposed that they become friends and address each other by name. They sealed the agreement with a handshake. Rince confirmed they could use an informal tone and their first names, so long as it wasn't in public. X accepted, addressing him as Rince. The prince then turned to Alice, asking if he could borrow X as a bodyguard from time to time. She readily agreed, saying it was no problem if it was for work. Following the prince's request, Alice asked X if it was a job he could truly handle, pointing out that sword skills and actual combat were different things. X averted his gaze slightly, but assured her it was fine, as long as she understood the arrangement. She then pressed further, asking if he was truly okay with the fact that he wouldn't always be by her side. She posed a direct question. What would he do if she told him she felt lonely? His response was immediate and absolute. He would, of course, refuse the duty and stay with her. He reaffirmed his devotion, stating that Alice was his top priority and he would do anything she wished. He then asked if she disliked the formal way he addressed her. Alice met his gaze, her own expression earnest. She told him she wanted to know everything about him, and pleaded for him to speak more informally and show her his true self. He looked down at her, a soft expression on his face as he murmured her name. As she smiled up at him, he gave his consent. Understood. He is about to leave the room, a pleasant memory of Alice's smiling agreement fresh in his mind, when Prince Rince calls out his name, asking for a moment of his time. The prince leans in, explaining that there is a concerning matter they cannot discuss in the open hallway. He suggests they go outside, and X, with a serious expression, agrees. Before they depart, he asks if he can first check on Alice, noting that she must be busy. Prince Rince allows it, adding cryptically that X will understand the situation once he sees it. His concern proves correct. Looking into the classroom, they see Alice at the center of a large, chattering group of female students. Prince Rince observes aloud that she is, indeed, very busy. The prince speculates that the other girls are taking advantage of X's absence to ask Alice questions. He jokes that no one approaches him due to his lack of charisma, noting that ladies are sensitive to such things. Seeing the crowd, X agrees it will be a while and that they should go. As they walk outside, Prince Rince mentions that the others involved in the recent affair are now quietly reflecting at home. He then confesses that there is still something he cannot understand, prompting X to ask what it is. He wants to discuss his brother and his confidants. The prince explains that they all began to be corrupted after getting involved with a commoner woman, and he simply cannot fathom how she captured their hearts. He turns to X, asking if he feels anything for this woman. X offers a startling theory. He thinks the woman might be able to use magic. The idea shocks Prince Rince, who clearly considers magic to be a supernatural phenomenon belonging to the realm of fantasy. In this world, magic is a known, albeit secret, phenomenon. It is not an omnipotent force, but rather an innate physical constitution. Those who can control water from birth, for example, are called water magic users. The powers vary in strength, from purifying water to raising small amounts of it, and are kept hidden once they manifest. The reason for this secrecy is magic's instability. It can manifest after puberty and vanish in a day, or awaken in childhood and last a lifetime. This unpredictability makes it unusable for military purposes. Its manifestation, however, is more common within noble lineages. Continuing the discussion, X clarifies for Alice what Prince Rince was implying. He confirms that, while only a possibility, they suspect the woman in question might be a user of charm magic. He explains to Rince that if this is true, the situation becomes highly problematic. X believes she is likely using the power, a hypnotic ability affecting the opposite sex, unconsciously. When Rince asks for the king's opinion, X reveals that His Majesty also suspects the woman possesses this power. Alice adds that if the woman could wield it intentionally, it would be even more dangerous, making it impossible to release her carelessly. Rince then questions how X was able to free himself from her magic, speculating that he might have used his own magic, perhaps a form of physical enhancement. X confirms that he can indeed use physical enhancement magic, an ability passed down through the Viscount Lost family for generations, but he dismisses it as unrelated to his immunity. Meanwhile, Alice has a private realization, wondering if her reincarnation and memories from a past life are what nullify the charm magic's effects on her. Seizing the moment, Rince declares his intent to investigate personally and asks X to accompany him, acknowledging the potential danger. He sighs, admitting that he also wants to be X's friend and trusts him to provide backup. Internally, X considers the situation troublesome, but his resolve hardens. If this woman proves to be a threat to Alice, he will eliminate her. Outwardly, he agrees to help the next day, but only for a short time, as he wishes to spend the rest of his day with Alice. Rince readily accepts his terms. Later, seeing Alice nearby, X decides this is a good opportunity and calls out her name. He swiftly closes the distance between them, taking her hand and pulling her into a sudden, firm embrace. Alice is stunned by the unexpected gesture. Flustered, her face flushing red, she asks what he is doing. X leans in close and apologizes, admitting he couldn't help himself because she is so cute. Onlookers murmur amongst themselves, noting what a lovely couple they make, and that Miss Alice is blushing. He whispers a challenge, asking if she wants him to stop, offering to let her go if she doesn't like it. Though embarrassed, Alice clutches his uniform and quietly pleads for him to hold her and stay just like this. He smiles, agreeing with pleasure. Later, as they sit together on a bench, X asks Alice to stop being upset. She clarifies that she isn't angry, just that she wasn't mentally prepared for his sudden actions. He apologizes once more for his lack of self-control and offers a deal. He will do whatever she wants in return, if only she will forgive him. She hesitates for a moment, then asks if he will truly do anything he promised. When X confirms without hesitation, she makes a request for him to open his mouth and say ah. X seems taken aback by the simple demand. His surprise gives way to a faint smirk. He clarifies that he's not opposed, just pleased, as he hadn't imagined Alice would be interested in such activities. She counters that she is, asserting her identity as a girl first and a lady second. He then asks what other requests she has in mind. Alice shyly lists her desires: to walk holding hands, to be hugged from behind, and to be carried like a princess. She also adds that she'd like to try using his lap as a pillow, promising to repay him with gratitude. To every single one, X agrees without question. Deciding to start with the first request, he watches as Alice lifts a spoonful of the lunch he prepared. She prompts him to say ah, and he obliges, accepting the food she offers. He finds it delicious and expresses his gladness to Alice. He then suggests it would taste even better if she were the one to feed him. Surprised by his request, she asks if he's serious. When he insists, she understands and agrees. Before she can act, however, X suddenly moves, wrapping his arms around her from behind in a tight embrace. Startled, she calls out his name, demanding to know what he is doing. He leans in close, apologizing and admitting he couldn't restrain himself after remembering all the cute requests she had made. Flustered, Alice reminds him they are in the middle of eating. He acknowledges her point, promising to return to his seat soon. But he lingers, asking if it would be so wrong to remain like this for just a little while longer. Alice doesn't answer, her gaze softening as they share the quiet moment. He reflects internally that nothing could be more pleasant than a quiet lunch shared between just the two of them. He quietly thanks Alice for the moment. His resolve hardens. He doesn't care about the labels the world might place on her, be it a character in a game or a villainess. To him, she is simply Alice, his one and only adorable person. He vows to spend more time with her, to fight the entire world if it should reject her, and to do anything necessary to protect her smile. He stood with Alice, looking out at the grand architecture before them, and made a solemn vow. No matter what obstacles awaited them in the future, he would face them. His declaration was met by an unfamiliar voice. A man with light hair, draped in a lavish fur collar, regarded him with a knowing smirk. The man stated that he had been waiting for him, for X Lost, son of the Viscount, before pausing and correcting himself with a simple, dismissive no. X's eyes narrowed, his expression hardening as he processed the man's true meaning. The stranger wasn't waiting for him, but rather for a different entity merely wearing his skin. Rince Landry informs X Lost that his father, the Emperor himself, wishes to meet him. As they walk through a grand palace corridor, X is immediately struck with a bad feeling about the impending audience. He asks if he is to go alone, and Rince confirms with a smile that he will be waiting outside. X turns to face the large, ornate doors of the throne room, the sound of his boots echoing softly in the hall. The doors creak open, revealing the emperor seated on his throne. The monarch greets him, identifying him as the son of Viscount X Lost. Internally, X realizes the emperor saw through him instantly. He kneels, formally introducing himself and requesting the emperor refrain from calling him an impostor, which only seems to amuse the ruler. He cannot accept such statements, even from the emperor, stating he takes pride in his position as the next family head. The emperor dismisses his concern, calling the incident where X stole a woman from his good-for-nothing son entertaining. He adds that making Linz the crown prince was the right decision, as a fool could never rule the country. X is taken aback by the emperor's blunt disdain for his own son. He asks if he was summoned merely to hear such things. The emperor clarifies his true curiosity, how X managed to persuade the notoriously stubborn Duke Misty. When the emperor playfully suggests a passionate love confession, X internally panics, recalling the awkward moment he actually confessed his feelings for Alice directly to her father. His thoughts drift to an image of Alice, reaffirming to himself that she is the only one he loves. He briefly considers the world's lack of restrictions on gay marriage or incest, but dismisses it as a path he will not take. Returning his focus to the emperor, he asks what his majesty intends to do about the girl and Lord Mace. The emperor's expression hardens as he reveals his true request. X is to meet the girl who seduced his son, and if the second prince, Linz, is in any danger, X must protect him at all costs. The emperor elaborates, fearing his idiot son might try to run away with the girl. This would result in her execution or, at best, house arrest. Furthermore, if she possesses charm magic, she cannot be left unchecked. X silently considers that exile might have been sufficient if not for the possibility of such magic. His resolve hardens. He admits to himself that he doesn't care about the heroine, but he cannot forgive anyone who would bring harm to Alice, which could happen if the girl is killed carelessly. He accepts the mission, agreeing to protect Lord Linz, but with one condition, that the emperor not execute the girl thoughtlessly. He states that any grudge can be directed at him, but Alice must not be affected. The emperor smiles, having expected this response, and agrees to the terms. As he leaves, X wonders if this entire scenario was a trap plan from the very beginning. He stood before Prince Linz, who expressed concern for X's own safety. X acknowledged the risk, but reaffirmed his duty, stating he would rely on his companions if the worst came to pass. With his resolve set, he prepared himself as they approached a prison cell, where a guard announced their arrival to the inmate. As he approached the bars, the prisoner, Maria, looked up with a flicker of hope, believing he had come to her rescue. X quickly disabused her of that notion. Before she could ask who he was, Prince Linz stepped forward, introducing himself as the second prince, the one she had attempted to take from his older brother. A wave of recognition and desperation washed over Maria, and she begged Lord Linz for help. Her plea seemed to have an immediate, unnatural effect. As Prince Linz reached toward her, a strange influence overcame him. Reacting with swift precision, X tackled the prince, pulling him away from the cell's bars. Linz staggered back, disoriented, realizing he had nearly been charmed. X, holding him steady, confirmed the prince was conscious and concluded that this all but proved the prisoner wielded charm magic. He assured the prince that he would heal any injuries from the tackle, dismissing him from the immediate confrontation. As Linz's companions tended to him, X turned his gaze back to the cell. The prisoner's ability to consciously use her power was a troublesome development. He looked at her with new understanding and addressed her not as the girl she appeared to be, but as Maria, or rather, the one who had been reincarnated as her. She looked at him, startled, questioning if he was truly X. He countered that, just as she was not the original Maria, he was not the person she might assume him to be. The realization dawned on her. He was a reincarnator, just like her. Her mind then raced to a new puzzle, wondering aloud if some special artifact or trick had rendered her magic useless against him. He ignored her query, stating he had a question of his own. He asked if she was familiar with the OTOME game, Lovely Princess. Without hesitation, she confirmed that she was. His line of questioning continued. Did she frame Alice in an attempt to seduce the prince? Maria laughed off the accusation, denying it completely. She declared that her true target had never been the prince, but rather the game's hidden character. The term hidden character gave him pause. He pressed further, asking if her goal was to create a reverse harem. From her reaction, it was clear she was surprised by his ignorance. She surmised that he must have played the game before it was ported, a revelation that struck X. It meant additional routes had been added to the story he knew. He processed the new, unsettling facts. Maria was a reincarnator, possessed charm magic, and held knowledge of the game that surpassed his own. He recalled a detail from this ported version. The hidden character's route required a butler to initiate the engagement cancellation. His original plan for a simple resolution was now useless. A new course of action was needed. He turned back to her with a surprising proposition, an alliance. He asked if she would be willing to become Alice's maid. Stunned, Maria could only ask if he was insane. X chuckled, anticipating her distrust. He acknowledged her thoughts, that he might betray her, use her power to seize control of the country, or simply to banish the story's villainess. He continues to lay out his proposal, explaining that by serving Alice as a form of atonement, her presence would seem natural to society. This, he points out, would create the perfect opportunity for her to form a relationship with the hidden character she seeks. His expression hardens as he delivers a stark warning. Should any harm come to Alice, he will cut Maria down without a second thought. Through the bars, Maria quietly concedes that his threat is justified. Meanwhile, outside the cell, Alice expresses her unease to Linz, questioning if they can truly leave based solely on X's judgment. Linz, seated calmly on a crate, reassures her. He tells her not to worry, reminding her that there was a specific reason he and the Crown Prince came, and that he is confident in his assessment. Back inside, Maria processes the situation, asking if the king's intention is to use her effectively. X confirms her suspicion, stating that the king must have seen through both her charm magic and her entire act. He smirks, privately noting that this is exactly the kind of crafty plan the king would devise. Maria lets out a heavy sigh, bemoaning that after finally becoming the heroine of a game, her fate has come to this. X simply reaffirms that his proposal is the only way for her to achieve her goal. Her despair suddenly vanishes, replaced by a startling laugh. She calls the situation hilarious and asks X if he was scared when he was reincarnated. She then questions him about when his own reincarnation occurred, admitting that for her, it happened when she was a child. The laughter fades as she confesses that she was, in fact, terrified. She recalls the feeling of suddenly finding herself in a completely different place. Her words prompt X to quietly reflect on the concept of fear, an emotion he has never experienced. Outside, Linz comforts a weary Alice, comparing the experience of reincarnation to being kidnapped. At the same time, X's true motivation is revealed in his thoughts. He would have accepted any form of reincarnation, so long as it allowed him to save Alice. It is not because she is a favorite character, but because she is the person he loves most. Maria's soft voice reaches him from the cell. She expresses a gentle envy, remarking that Alice must have it tough being loved so intensely, and that she admires his ability to live so true to himself. X simply replies that one cannot hold back in the face of Alice's cuteness. Having made her decision, Maria gets to her feet. She extends her hand through the bars of the cell, formally accepting the terms. She declares she will become Alice's maid, offering a handshake to seal their cooperation. X meets her gaze, accepting her pledge and telling her he is counting on her. He presents Maria to a surprised Alice, explaining that this is her new maid. He clarifies that it's someone she knows, who wishes to atone for her past actions. Alice, taken aback, can only utter a confused. She then turns to Maria, apologizing for what happened at the evening party. Maria dismisses the apology. Seeing Alice's unease, X takes her hand firmly, promising to protect her if anything happens. He thanks him, but a thought weighs on her mind. She was aware of Maria's actions and feels a share of the responsibility for not doing anything to stop them. Her awareness impresses X, who realizes now why he fell for her. She is smart, cute, and powerful. He pulls her into a possessive embrace, declaring that Alice is his. The suddenness of it all leaves Alice flustered. Maria calmly interjects, acknowledging that doting on Alice is his privilege. However, she points out that since Alice is now her mistress, he should share her a little, but only if Alice allows it. She then turns to Alice, asking for her thoughts. After a moment, Alice clears her throat and requests that Maria not get too close to X. The request delights X, who wonders if she is jealous. The thought fills him with incredible happiness, as he finds possessiveness to be his type. Maria, observing this, agrees to the condition. She adds a condition of her own. However, she must be allowed to at least report to X for work. She muses aloud that Alice truly does love him. Flustered, Alice concedes that it can't be helped, but firmly forbids any indecent acts. His eyes widen in amazement as he realizes what she considers indecent, holding hands, calling each other by name to confirm feelings, and kissing. Maria bows deeply, promising Alice that she will keep her word. She then giggles, telling Alice not to worry, as X is far too much for her to handle. Meanwhile, X's mental folder dedicated to Alice's virtues fills rapidly. Alice pouts, complaining that Maria is being mean. Maria then suggests they can call each other by their first names, but when they are alone, Alice can continue addressing her as she has been. Alice agrees, formally welcoming Maria. And so, an unexpected situation arose. The heroine had gained the villainess as her personal maid. She understood that placing someone with knowledge of the OTOME game by Alice's side would make it easier to handle any irregularities. However, it still wasn't enough. Maria couldn't be fully trusted until the heroine's own issue was completely resolved. Therefore, a different approach was needed. X approached the butler of the Misty household, who turned to face him, questioning the implication of surveillance. The butler, Beres, asked why he had been chosen for this task. X explained that he wanted to entrust him with the surveillance of Maria. The reason, he thought to himself, was obvious. Beres was highly trusted by the head butler, served as Alice's personal attendant, and most importantly, was the hidden capturable character from the game. He couldn't reveal the true reason, so he simply stated it was because Beres is Alice's butler. X added that while he acts as her guard, his role is mostly for show, involving scheduling. He also mentioned that it was Lord Lost who brought Beres here, noting that the butler is apparently quite skilled in combat. X pressed on, explaining with some irritation that he can't always be by Alice's side, which is precisely why he needed to ask this of him. Beres connected the pieces, asking if this was related to the rumor that the new maid could use magic. The source of that rumor, X recalled, was the head butler, It was Duke Misty who had deliberately leaked the information. His knowledge made things easier. It was understood that charm magic hardly works on the same sex, so the female servants could watch out for each other and manage the situation amongst themselves. X continued his explanation, stating that since the maid uses charm magic, he would be at a disadvantage as a man. He needed at least one ally for unexpected situations. Barrys correctly assumed he was being scouted. X leaned in and whispered that as a fellow reincarnator, he needed to be cautious. He revealed a plan to recruit people for when Alice marries, confirming Barrys was one of them under a contract already made with the Duke. He then asked if Barrys could imagine what would happen if he refused. X stated plainly that he wouldn't allow it, because if Barrys refused, Alice would end up feeling lonely. He framed it as Barrys having no right to say no. Barrys, sweating, called it a complete threat. X brushed it off, saying they could deal with that later, and pressed him for a decision on the surveillance duty. He warned that Maria would likely approach Barrys aggressively. The butler expressed his fear of being affected by charm magic, but X casually suggested that if that happened, he should just give up and become a sacrifice, or better yet, try to charm X instead. Elsewhere, Duke Misty confides in his wife, his hand resting gently on her arm. He explains that Maria's assistance is paramount to ensuring Alice's safety. The Duke's plan is clear. If Maria and the prince become a couple, they could be recruited into the Misty household, which would fulfill their mission. However, he trails off, a new concern already forming in his mind. The thought is cut short by the sharp ring of steel. A blade flashes into view, its point gleaming as a voice bellows out a name. X lost. He stands impassively as Fan Ractor confronts him, the tip of a sword held steady just below his chin. With a look of fierce resolve, Fan issues a simple, direct demand, fight me. Inside a classroom at the academy, X Lost confronts the second prince, Linz Landry, about a commotion that occurred earlier in the morning, questioning if he was responsible. The prince simply asks what X means by his choice of words. Later, on the way to school, X walks alongside Alice Misty, who is now accompanied by her new attendant, Maria. Other students whisper as they pass, identifying Maria as the witch who took the first prince from Lady Misty and questioning her new role. Maria observes the hostile atmosphere, remarking to Alice that the recent attempt on her was clearly a planned event, not a simple incident. Alice listens to the murmurs and thinks to herself that this is the expected reaction when the victim of a broken engagement hires the very cause of it as a servant. She turns to X, voicing her concern about bringing Maria along and the risk of attracting more trouble. X reassures her, but internally, he acknowledges his dual purpose, to eliminate troublemakers and improve Alice's image. Suddenly, a sharp voice cuts through the crowd, shouting his name. The voice belongs to Fan Ractor, the son of Baron von Raka. He stands before them, his face a mask of indignation, demanding to know why Maria is dressed as a servant. X calmly replies that it is because she is, in fact, a servant. Enraged by this, Fan Ractor clenches his fist, shouting that he can no longer stay silent, while X not only falsely accuses Maria, but also humiliates her. He draws his sword and challenges X to a duel. The challenger lays out his terms. If he wins, X must release Maria. If he loses, he would do anything X commands. Unflustered, X simply asks what Fan will do if he is the one who wins. Fan declares that they will meet at the school training ground after classes, telling X to prepare for defeat. As he departs, Alice worriedly asks X if it was wise to make such a promise, admitting she doesn't want him to get hurt. X reassures her that everything will be fine. He watches Fan walk away, reflecting on the boy's motives. X surmises that Fan is consumed by unrequited feelings for Maria, concluding that such one-sided emotions, which disregard the other person's view, can lead to madness. He realizes that if he had made a single wrong move in his own past, he could have ended up just like him. Alice's voice brings him back to the present. She tells him it's okay, because she accepts all of his feelings. Taking his hand, she adds that she not only accepts his feelings, but shows her own in return. She thanks him, and he looks at her, a quiet understanding passing between them. She finds herself face to face with X Lost, who gently holds her hands. He explains that his reason for making Maria her servant was to create an opportunity to be close to her, just like this. Internally, he admits to himself that he simply wanted an excuse to embrace her. This reasoning prompts a wider discussion. Linz explains to a confused Fan Ractor that Maria's potential for danger is vast, referencing the extensive lore of the game, Lovely Princess, which includes sequels and numerous side stories. He asserts that Maria could be a dangerous factor. Fan, however, counters this, questioning if X isn't the more dangerous one, pointing out that there's even an unpopular storyline where X is a romanceable character. Despite the complex arguments, Alice's resolve remains firm. She understands that even if she were to judge and condemn the story's heroine, it would do nothing to erase her own painful memories. This is precisely why she feels so strongly about protecting her. Her unwavering focus is noted by Linz. X formally agrees with the sentiment, stating that protecting Alice through trickery is the easier path. Later, after school, X arrives at the location for the duel and is taken aback by the large crowd that has gathered. His eyes find Alice, standing apart from the others, seemingly withdrawn and blaming herself for the situation. Seeing him arrive, Alice approaches and asks if he is all right. Nearby, Lin's remarks with surprise that X is fighting for a single woman, a comment X quickly dismisses. Alice tries to reassure him, stating she won't lose so easily, but her words falter as she realizes that isn't the core of her worry. Her visible distress does not go unnoticed. X looks at her gently, asking if she has perhaps perceived even the subtle changes in him. Alice admits she is a little worried, observing that he seems less energetic than usual, and offers to do anything she can to help. Her offer prompts a soft smile from him. He thanks her for her worry and playfully asks if he can get a reward if he wins. When she seems surprised, he specifies his request, a kiss from Alice. Her face flushes. Seeing her reaction, he relents, saying her concern alone makes him feel better and strengthens his resolve. At that moment, Fan Ractor arrives, remarking that X didn't run away. He turns to face his opponent, his expression hardening. X lays out the terms of their duel. If Fan wins, Maria will be released. But if X is victorious, Fan must grant him any single wish. Fan Ractor accepts the condition without a moment's hesitation, declaring that the terms are understood and there will be no misunderstandings. As they take their positions, X lost assesses the training sword in his hands. He finds it far too light and less durable than his own weapon, realizing it would be better to deflect any blows rather than attempt to block them directly. He regrets not bringing his own sword. The moment the duel is declared to start, Fan Ractor lunges forward, bringing his sword down in a powerful overhead strike. X remains perfectly still, anticipating the move. He effortlessly sidesteps the attack, causing Fan Ractor to stumble from his own momentum. With a confident smirk, X warns his opponent not to be so easily surprised in the middle of a battle. Growing increasingly agitated, Fan Ractor demands that X stop running and fight him properly. X continues to evade each frantic swing with ease, calmly musing that the duel would be over too soon if he were to get serious. As his opponent curses in frustration, X makes his move. With a sharp clap, he catches the blade of the training sword between his bare palms, halting it instantly. Fan stares in disbelief as X declares his intent to show him the true difference in their abilities. Before Fan Ractor can process what's happening, X shatters the blade with his bare hands. The force of the impact sends Fan sprawling to the ground. Defeated, he accuses X of using someone as an excuse, questioning what he could possibly understand. X coolly replies that he has no intention of commenting on such things. He stands over his fallen opponent, advising him to remember that throwing a tantrum like a child will not get him what he wants. From the sidelines, Lin's voice rings out, officially declaring X lost as the winner. Immediately, Alice rushes to X's side, asking if he is all right after fighting a swordsman barehanded. She notes how mercilessly he won and asks if Fan will be okay. X reassures her that he is fine, as Alice expresses a mix of relief and embarrassment at the public display. As Maria attends to Fan Ractor being carried away on a stretcher, Lin approaches X. He asks how they should deal with Fan in the future. X replies that he has already given him advice, and now the choice is Fan's to make. With the duel concluded and its consequences addressed, he turns his full attention to the person waiting for him, calling out her name, Alice. Before her, X knelt on one knee, taking her hand gently. He declared that he was dedicating his victory to her. He continued, looking up at a stunned Alice, promising to fight for her from that day forward. He vowed to defeat any opponent who stood in their way and to always remain by her side, asking her to believe in him. The onlookers gasped, recognizing his words as a bold proposal. She blushed, a small smile gracing her lips. X, meanwhile, considered his actions. He knew that by demonstrating his abilities, he would deter others from bothering Alice. He also admitted to himself that he wanted to show her his impressive side. The display of power had its intended effect, as nearby spectators murmured that they would not want to be his enemy. Sometime later, X located Fan Ractor, who was being escorted away, his head bowed in defeat. He found him resting in a bed, recovering from their duel. Fan Ractor looked up, asking if X had come to laugh at him. He expressed surprise that X would make such a joke after defeating him so soundly, admitting he never thought he'd want to compliment him. X's expression remained serious as he challenged Fan, stating that he never truly cared about Maria. He called Fan amazing for pushing forward with a challenge while knowing his feelings were false. Fan recoiled, shouting that it wasn't true. He calmly explained his reasoning, perceiving that Fan's core issue was loneliness, not envy, and that he had tried to release his frustration. X suggested that Fan wanted to know what it was like to be someone who helps others, and so he tried to prove his own existence. He then revealed he knew about the rumors of a maid having feelings for Fan, and that Maria had heard them too. X asked Fan directly what he truly wanted, prompting a memory of the maid confessing her feelings for him. He continued his recollection, explaining that the maid had been with him for a long time. He described her as clumsy, careless, and slow, but admitted that he really liked her. His feelings soured, however, when he accidentally saw her chatting intimately with his own father. He clenched his fist, remembering the painful realization. From their interaction, he understood that the maid saw his father as someone special, not him. It was after this, while trying to forget his feelings, that he met Maria. As others confessed to her so directly, he convinced himself that he liked Maria too, feeling it might help him forget the maid and his father. X listened patiently before offering a different interpretation. He suggested that the feelings the maid has for Fan's father are more akin to parental affection, pointing out that she is an orphan. He explained that her employer, Baron Rakata, is known for actively hiring orphans. For someone without a family, people who treat them with such kindness become incredibly special. Fan's eyes widened as he considered the possibility, wondering aloud if he had created a huge misunderstanding. Continuing his counsel to Fan Ractor, X admitted that he himself had been jealous without realizing such a simple thing, running wild on his own. He added that Fan's ability to take action is a strength, and that he has the potential to protect those important to him. In frustration, Fan Ractor slammed his fist into his bed, declaring it impossible. He lamented that he couldn't have feelings for someone anymore due to their different social statuses. X challenged this, asking why he was giving up. He reminded Fan that he was strong enough to pick a fight for Maria, whom he didn't even like, and would become even stronger if he fought for someone he truly loved. X urged him to do his best, confess his true feelings to the maid, and get up. With his encouragement delivered, X left the room and found Maria in the hallway. He told her that with Fan in a weakened state, it was the perfect chance for her to make him fall for her. He assured her that social status differences could be overcome and that the rest depended on her feelings for him. The setup was complete. All she had to do was act. Leaving Maria to her thoughts, X continued on until Alice called out to him. She asked if he'd run into any trouble. He replied that, apart from being surrounded by other women asking questions, Maria had seen it but offered no help. She seemed unbothered, remarking that it was a relief that Maria seemed to be feeling more comfortable around them. Alice then asked if he was planning to make a move, chiding him for worrying too much and stating she knew he wouldn't act without her consent. At this, Maria covered her mouth, stifling a laugh as she revealed that just yesterday, Alice had been talking passionately about him. X smiled warmly at Alice, promising to protect her and urging her to tell him if anything ever happened. Alice affirmed with a simple yes. She then turned to him, her face flushed with a deep blush. Did you hear that? She asked, embarrassed. She confessed that she hadn't thought he was that interested in her, making the revelation all the more mortifying. He smiled, replying that he was happy, but that he wanted to cherish his time with her, and asked if she could wait until the wedding. Flustered, Alice shot back that she wasn't interested in that kind of thing. She continued, setting her terms firmly. X, you two must not be with any other woman besides me. Also, there's other things you mustn't do with other women. His own expression grew serious as he agreed, stating that he was only interested in Alice and would not tolerate her being with another man, warning her to be prepared. He then leaned closer, taking her hand. For example, approaching like this, he murmured, lifting her knuckles to his lips for a kiss. His eyes locked on hers as he asked, is this kind of thing also not okay? He chuckled, adding that just as she belonged to him, everything of his was also Alice's. Flustered, Alice vehemently declared that this meant a greeting kiss from any other man was absolutely forbidden. X readily agreed, stating that of course, every part of him belonged to her. He then reminded her of their promise, that he would receive a reward from her for winning the battle. As Maria watched from a distance, X gently instructed Alice to close her eyes. As she complied, he considered his reward, perhaps another kiss on the back of her hand, or maybe one on the cheek. He chose neither, instead leaning in and pressing his lips to hers. Pulling back slightly, a blushing Alice informed him that it was her first kiss, and that he must now take responsibility. He looked at her for a moment before embracing her, gladly accepting the charge. The following day, their new dynamic was set. Outside, X informed Alice that he would be right back. She immediately offered to come with him, questioning if he was sure about going alone, as it might become troublesome again. Smiling, she affirmed her decision, stating she would go anywhere with him. He accepted, and they walked away hand in hand, as Fan Ractor and Maria looked on. Bowing deeply, Fan Ractor thanks X, declaring that his wish has been fulfilled. Standing nearby with Alice and Maria, X states that he didn't act for Fan's sake. He then offers Fan a place to belong, but on the condition that Fan becomes his subordinate. He specifies the terms. After graduating from the academy, Fan must join the Night Order. Should X become its leader, Fan will be expected to work tirelessly. He asks if there are any complaints. Fan agrees without hesitation, adding that his highest priority will always be protecting Anri. Slowly, Fan kneels, addressing X as his lord. He clarifies that he cannot swear absolute loyalty, as Anri's safety will always take precedence in times of crisis. X accepts this, noting it would be problematic otherwise. He then turns to depart, entrusting matters to Fan, privately acknowledging that this is what one does to protect a loved one. From a nearby window, Prince Lin's Landry observes the exchange. He reflects quietly that he had expected X to break Fan's heart in an attempt to reform him. As X approaches, Linz turns and remarks on how sharp X is, noting his sensitivity to the subtleties of people's hearts and his impressive physical abilities. With his arms crossed, X admits that he had intended to do just that, up to a certain point, causing a moment of confusion among the others. A fleeting thought from Alice notes that X has a cute fiancée and that his love is deep. X dismisses this as a misunderstanding, then abruptly changes the subject, asking Linz if he has a preferred type, as he also wishes to find a fiancée soon. He steps closer, asking if X's interest lies with the opposite sex, explaining that if it were otherwise, their physical distance would have to increase. X seems surprised by the qualification. Linz quickly reassures him that no matter his preferences, they will remain friends. Turning smoothly, he expresses his gladness that they could become friends. He then confesses that, to be honest, he had felt a great deal of pressure about becoming the crown prince. X acknowledges that it must be a heavy burden to succeed the current king. With a somber expression, Linz looks down and makes a startling admission. He hated his older brother. He elaborates, recalling his older brother, Mace, as an arrogant and selfish person who always viewed him as an enemy. Linz laments that he lacks his brother's regal demeanor and is likely unsuited to be king. X counters that while a king needs dignity, one without the ability to back it up is merely a fool. He looks to X lost, a small smile forming as he makes a request. He wants X to help rehabilitate his brother and those close to him. X, arms crossed, agrees, stating that as long as Alice is in the country, he'll be around. He then reassures the prince, telling him that if anything happens, he will have his support. His request stems from a deep concern. He explains that his brother and his followers are deeply depressed by what they've done. Though they were sane until recently, he fears that if left alone, they might even resort to suicide. X listens intently, asking if they have returned to their senses. The prince clarifies that this course of action is his father's idea, a strategy to ensure that the younger brother, stripped of his royal rights, does not completely abandon the throne. Meanwhile, Fan Ractor contemplates the situation with a grim expression. He resolves that he cannot afford to put Alice in danger. His mind races through the potential consequences. If the broken engagement leads to suicide or exile, he vows to get his revenge on X. Back in their conversation, X accepts the weight of the situation, promising to take full responsibility no matter what happens. He then asks Linz to clarify who else, besides his brother and his subordinates, needs to be reformed. Later, sitting on a garden bench with Alice, X appears lost in thought. Alice notices his gloomy expression and asks if something is wrong. She offers to do anything she can for him, asking him to let her know if there's anything she can do. He thanks her for the kind offer, but cautions her against saying such things to any other man. He explains that making such a promise could cause them to develop inappropriate feelings. Alice looks at him, puzzled by his warning. She processes his words, a blush rising on her cheeks. With genuine curiosity, she asks if he is also susceptible to developing such feelings under those circumstances. Alice presses further, asking directly if he has inappropriate thoughts about any other girls besides her. The question hangs in the air for a moment before X leans forward, his hand thumping against the bench behind her. With sudden, startling intensity, he declares that he has no such feelings toward anyone other than Alice. His declaration hangs in the silent space between them. Alice stares back, her eyes wide with surprise, while X maintains his serious, unwavering gaze. He tells her that if she wishes, she can keep looking at him like this forever. A blush spreads across Alice's face as she accepts his words, playfully calling him a meanie. She confirms that she understands and believes him. Her heart warms at his sincerity, and she smiles radiantly. X watches her, thinking to himself that he feels this way simply because Alice is so cute. He silently vows to resolve all outstanding matters quickly so they can cherish their time together. As they sit together on a garden bench, Alice's curiosity gets the better of her, and she asks what was on his mind earlier. He dismisses her question, claiming it was nothing important, before redirecting the conversation. He asks for her thoughts on His Highness Mace. She admits that while the situation was initially a shock, she has come to feel grateful. When he asks about Maria, Alice clarifies that she holds no grudge, explaining that it's because her own first love has now been realized. Unseen by them, Fan Ractor overhears her confession. His heart pounds as her words echo in his mind. He wonders in disbelief if Alice's first love could be him, if she has liked him all along. Back on the bench, X reassures Alice of her kindness, telling her not to blame herself. She turns to him with a brilliant smile, declaring that as long as he is by her side, she is happy. He observes her, noting that her mental state seems to have grown stronger. He silently questions if this newfound strength stems from her growing dependency on him, a thought that makes his own heart beat faster. His thoughts grow more intense. He clenches his fist, deciding that her dependency is for the best. In fact, he muses he would prefer it if she became even more possessive, a yandere, completely devoted to him. Sometime later, a knock sounds on Prince Mace's door. The prince, looking distraught, calls out, asking if X has come to mock him. X enters with Prince Linz, stating calmly that he heard Mace was feeling down and came to visit. Mace reacts with anguish, accusing X of taking everything from him, and then feigning concern. He confesses his regret, acknowledging that after he broke their engagement, X immediately proposed to Alice, making him feel he has done something terrible to her. He sits, his hand twitching with suppressed rage, as X explains the situation. This is his punishment for making Alice suffer, for belittling others, and for losing everything over something so trivial. X coldly admits he would have been fine with Alice suffering if it meant he could be with Maria. He trembles, covering his face in anguish, feeling impatient and wanting to do something. Seizing the opportunity, X proposes a match. He reveals he knew Maria likes someone else, and offers Mace a chance to see her again if he wins. The condition: if Mace loses, he must do as X says. He accepts, declaring that he doesn't care about X's schemes. He only needs to win. From the side, his brother Linz vouches for X, sealing the agreement. X smirks, thinking this is the perfect opportunity to settle things once and for all for what Mace did to Alice. Later, in a courtyard, Mace questions why X is unarmed. X explains it's a handicap, stating he would win too easily in a normal fight. The rules are simple. The first to make the other admit defeat wins. He then adds another handicap, banning the use of his right hand. With a chilling smile, he warns Mace not to underestimate him, or he will be killed. Mace's jaw tightens in response. With a shout, the duel begins. Mace lunges, his blade slicing through the air where X stood just a moment before. X sidesteps the attack, noting internally that the prince is faster than anticipated. He pants, growing frustrated as his attacks continue to miss. How are you avoiding it so well? He demands. X calmly observes that while Mace's swordsmanship is fundamentally sound, his patterns are predictable and easy to avoid. A confident smirk spreads across his face. He declares that while Mace is certainly strong, he himself is many times stronger. Enraged by the taunt, Mace unleashes a furious barrage of strikes, screaming that he'll kill him. Yet, X evades every slash and thrust with effortless grace, his movements a blur across the stone courtyard. Why can't I hit you? Mace roars in frustration. X calmly reveals the secret to his strength. Mace will never understand it, because he has no one to protect. The words strike the prince, who can only clench his fist in stunned silence. He flinches as X's hand strikes his sword, the force of the blow sending the weapon flying from his grasp. It clatters loudly against the stone ground, leaving him disarmed and defeated. He shouts for X to shut up, refusing to accept the premise. But X calmly refutes him, insisting that it is not ridiculous. It is precisely because of the desire to protect others that people can become strong. He continues his verbal assault, asking if Mace is satisfied now that all that remains for him is the label of a miserable prince. As he moves to strike again, a voice rings out, commanding him to stop. The intervention comes from Linz, Mace's twin brother. He addresses Mace directly, telling him that if he dislikes his current situation, he must make an effort. He reminds him that while he is no longer the crown prince, he is still a prince. He continues his counsel, urging Mace to refine his knowledge and contribute to the country's development, stating that everything now depends on his actions. Looking toward the city, Mace finally concedes, admitting his defeat. Linz turns to X and commends him on a job well done. As they walk away, Linz remarks that it was a crushing victory. X, however, is lost in thought. He realizes he hasn't used any body enhancement magic since reincarnating and wonders just how dangerous he would be if he ever did. His thoughts drift to a memory of a classmate commenting on his impressive swordsmanship. He questions if his current strength is some kind of reincarnation bonus and considers if he should perhaps hold back even more in the future. Returning to the present, Linz thanks X, explaining that he could see the relief on his brother's face after the loss and believes X truly helped him. X dismisses the thanks, but privately considers a darker path. If anyone were to target Alice, he was prepared to use assassination. Linz clenches his fist, troubled by the thought of X holding Alice with hands that have killed. Shaking off the disturbing notion, he changes the subject and asks where X is headed next. He replies that he is going to Duke Misty's residence. His purpose there is to meet Alice's stepbrother. In Duke Misty's basement, Fan Ractor quietly asks X to stay silent no matter what happens, affirming his trust. As they descend the stone steps with the Duke, a voice calls out from a cell below, asking who is there before recognizing X lost as the person he resents. The man, identified as Gates Misty, the Duke's adopted son, lunges at the bars with a loud clang. He screams at X, calling him a bastard. X remains impassive, thinking to himself that since Gates and Alice rarely interact, breaking his heart won't hurt her. He grips the bars of his cell, staring out as X stands before him. X begins to speak frankly. He informs the stunned Gates that he is no longer of any use, revealing that Duke Misty has adopted a new son. X declares that Gates will now spend the rest of his life in the cell until he dies. By the light of a flickering candle, Gates protests in disbelief, insisting his stepfather would never say such a thing. X counters coolly, stating that the Duke never expects to see him again. He adds that Gates must have known this was coming. A final click echoes as the cell door is secured. Leaning closer to the bars, X looks Gates in the eye and tells him the cold truth. He was never loved by the Duke's family. His mind flashes to the knowledge from his previous life's game. He recalls Gates's original story. His arrogant attitude was a mask for his loneliness, and the heroine, Alice, was meant to heal him. But that was just a story. His grip tightens on the iron bar. Gates explodes, shouting that it's ridiculous and accusing X of projecting his own weakness. Unfazed, X dismisses the outburst and states that Gates will be left to die in solitude. He then presents him with two choices. He reveals the first choice. With the Duke's permission, he could perform a mercy killing. As he unsheathes his sword, Gates flinches in terror. The second choice, X continues, is to believe him and die anyway. He continues to lay out the grim possibilities for the man behind the bars, explaining that if he leaves now, Gates might face a miserable end, death by old age, poison, or starvation. Gasping for breath, Gates cries out for him to wait. The desperate prisoner clutches his head, tears welling in his eyes as he vehemently rejects the idea. He screams that he doesn't want it, that he absolutely does not want to die. As the sound of a crash echoes through the dungeon, X-Loss calmly states that there is one way to be saved. However, He warns that Gates will have to consider it payment for his past actions and simply give up. He leans closer, a confident smirk on his face, and delivers his ultimatum. Abandon everything he has had until now and become his tool. Brought to his knees, Gates' Misty pleads to be saved. With renewed fervor, he shouts his acceptance, declaring that he will become one. With the negotiations settled, X issues a final, stern command. From now on, Gates will be in absolute obedience to his orders. He adds a chilling threat. If Gates ever lays a hand on Alice, he will kill him on the spot. Gates readily agrees. X reflects that with this, a disgusting turn of events has been avoided. The scene shifts to the following day. The next day, X sits in an opulent drawing room where he is greeted by Light Charles, the second son of Duke Charles. Light asks X to keep him company until his brother arrives. Internally, X recognizes Light as one of the romantic targets from a game, the younger brother of Peter Charles. He also recalls that Aniray is the target in the game's alternate storyline, another story. Lovely princess can't stop the heart pounding. Later, while walking through a garden, he asks Aniray for more details. She explains the dynamic. She is the heroine, and the young lady, Alice, is the villainess. Aniray clarifies that a player can deviate from Peter's route to pursue his brother, Light, which makes the jealous young lady's role more complex. She sighs, wondering why it always has to be her. Their negotiation is a success. Aniray concedes that it can't be helped. X instructs her to tell him about the remaining targets in the game's general storyline, promising in return to arrange a date for her with Berries. He resolves to eliminate all sources of anxiety, sensing that a second wave of the story is coming soon. Returning to the drawing room, X sits with Light Charles over tea. Light casually mentions that he heard X is engaged to Duke Misty's daughter. He then adds that he, too, wants to get engaged soon, a thought he'd never had before, as he always assumed his older brother would be the one to take over the family. He then posed a question to X, asking if he knew a girl named Maria, given that X did not have a fiancée. He clarified his inquiry, identifying Maria as the reason his own brother had fallen from grace. X, taking a sip from his cup, calmly replied that he was merely asking and had no contact with her. Changing the subject, he complimented the delicious cookie, which seemed to reassure Light that Maria was not a cause for concern. Light suggested they drop the formalities, inviting X to call him Light and offer X reciprocated. In response, Light revealed that the cookies were homemade by him. Both X and Aniray reacted with stunned surprise, a reaction X internally noted was identical to Alice's. Light expressed his admiration, remarking on X's versatility with both a sword and in the kitchen. X humbly deflected the praise, stating he still fell short when compared to his father, the commander of the Knights. He admitted that while being the commander's son brought pressure, it was also a source of pride. Light listened, finding his candor impressive. This prompted Light to share his own burdens, confessing to sleepless nights under the pressure of becoming the next head of the ducal family. X offered counsel, advising him not to be so nervous and to simply take things one step at a time, assuring him that steady progress would lead to his goal. Visibly moved by the encouragement, he asked if X would continue to offer him advice from time to time. With a warm smile, Light expressed his sincere gratitude for their meeting. Their conversation was abruptly interrupted by a knock at the door. A servant entered, announcing the arrival of Peter Sama. The door opened to reveal Peter Charles, the eldest son of Duke Charles. Before anyone could react, Peter strode forward, seized X by the collar, and furiously demanded to know how he dared to show his face there, leaving Light to watch in stunned silence. He accuses X lost of betrayal, claiming it's his fault that Maria ended up unhappy and working as Alice's maid. Grabbing X's uniform, Peter Charles shouts in disbelief, insisting that Maria should love him, not work for some ugly woman. In response, X Lost seizes Peter's face with a crushing grip. He leans in close, coldly warning that if Peter continues to insult Alice with his filthy mouth, he wouldn't mind breaking his hands right then and there. As Maria watches the scene unfold, she quietly notes to herself that his words sound like a threat. X looms over the terrified Peter, stating that while he will listen to any objections, he cannot guarantee Peter's life if he demeans Alice again. He releases Peter, who collapses to the floor beside his brother. Standing over them, X calmly explains that sometimes forceful actions like these are necessary. Light Charles, looking up from the floor with an intrigued expression, remarks that this approach is quite educational, especially for dealing with fools who possess nothing but pride. With that, X begins to drag a stunned Peter across the floor. He mockingly asks if the bravado from earlier was just an act, prompting Peter to cry out for him to stay away, calling him a monster. He stops, dropping a hairpin onto the floor with a clink. Unfurling a piece of paper, X explains that he has a message from Maria, and that it was Peter's betrayal that led to their current predicament. He continues, revealing that the hairpin was something Peter had bought for her. He then relays Maria's words. She is returning it because it is no longer needed. Peter stares down at the rejected gift, his composure shattering. A memory of Maria's voice echoes in his mind, cruelly asking if he knew she had been laughing at his poor taste. The voice adds that she didn't even say half of what X just told him. Crushed, Peter wonders where it all went wrong. From across the room, X provides the final blow. It was wrong from the very beginning. He states that the idea of a cute girl who truly understands a man like him simply doesn't exist. X Lost addresses Light Charles directly, a confident smirk on his face. He confirms that he did, in fact, come to make a fool of him. He calls Light arrogant and troublesome, but concedes that his high pride and showiness are not entirely without use. He continues his sharp assessment, describing Light as an annoying person with an empty heart and an easily broken spirit, all hidden beneath a veneer of arrogance. With Light looking on in shock, X extends a chilling offer. Will you become my puppet? The scene shifts. X now sits on a garden bench beside Alice Misty, the weight of exhaustion clear on his face. He closes his eyes, thinking to himself that he is tired, but that for him, Alice is the most important thing. Beside him, Alice remarks on what a nice day it is. As they sit in comfortable silence, he calls out her name. His internal thoughts reveal his true focus. All he can do is operate from the shadows to prevent anyone from getting their hands on Alice. She turns to him, her expression earnest, and poses a hypothetical question. She asks what he would do if she, hypothetically, did something bad. Alice answers her own query with unwavering conviction. She states that she would simply trust X and follow him, believing that if he ever did something wrong, there would have to be a good reason for it. X listens, a faint smile touching his lips. Her absolute faith brings a genuine smile to his face. He asks if this means that no matter what happens, Alice is his. Giggling, she confirms it, adding a playful warning that he is also hers, and she would be angry if he would cheat. She then admits to feeling a bit sleepy and, with a sweet expression, asks if she might use his lap as a pillow. He invites her closer, and she gently rests her head on his lap. As he pats her hair, she asks if she is too heavy. He reassures her that she is actually a bit too light, and begins to stroke her hair, commenting on its beauty. As he continues to gently stroke her hair, she closes her eyes, murmuring that it tickles. He looks down at her with a soft expression, realizing that spending quiet moments like this with Alice makes all his tiredness disappear. He reflected on his recent struggles, his gaze distant. Only one target remained. The primary reason he had been so desperate to consolidate his power. Turning his attention from his thoughts, he faced the young woman beside him. He decided the time was finally right to fulfill this long-held objective. Alice, he began, a gentle expression on his face. Her eyes widened slightly in surprise as he looked at her directly, a faint smile playing on his lips. Will you go on a date with me? Alice Misty processes the word, her eyes widening in realization. She stammers, asking if X is suggesting they go on a date together. He calmly confirms that is exactly what he means. From a distance, another student remarks that he's heard of such meetings being called dates among common people. She expresses her happiness, but admits she is unfamiliar with the local geography and doesn't know where they would go. X observes that she probably hasn't had much of a chance to get out and relax until now. He gently takes her hands, leaning closer. In that case, he insists they should definitely go out together. He proposes they walk around town, see various things, experience them, and simply have fun. Her face lights up with a blush as she agrees, saying she would love to go if it's with him. X smiles, stating that it's settled then. He reassures her that he has already obtained her father's permission and that security is all set. They agree to meet on the next holiday, and he promises to come and pick her up from her residence. Sometime later, X returns to the lost family estate. His father, Vector, greets him, asking if he has returned and if his duties at the castle are finished. X internally reflects on his father. Though feared as a war demon, he tends to leave the boring tasks to his muscle-brain subordinates. He then asks his father if he has ever met someone stronger than himself. Vector pauses thoughtfully before answering. He reveals that the only two people he has ever been unable to defeat are his own father, X's grandfather, Mobius Lost, and his lifelong nemesis, a figure he refers to only as that guy. The revelation stuns X, who is bewildered by the sudden appearance of such a dramatic storyline, one that never existed in the games he knew. Vector tells him that he will come to know in time, but he cannot speak of it now. All he can say is that he cannot defeat him. His father's words solidify a new resolve within him. He clenches his fist, realizing that in order to protect Alice, he might need to acquire more power. He approached his father, Vector, with a determined look. He asked for a sparring match, just for a little while, but with one condition, that they fight seriously. His father considered the request, stating that a serious fight would destroy the current training grounds. He proposed a match using physical enhancement magic instead, to which X agreed. With the terms set, Vector drew his sword. A confident smile spread across Vector's face as he declared the start of their duel. He lunged forward in an instant, his blade meeting X's with a deafening clang. The force of the blow sent X reeling, but he quickly recovered. Wondering if sweeping kicks were permitted, he didn't wait for an answer, launching a low kick that forced his father to roll aside. Vector used the momentum of his roll to spin, deftly disarming his son. X's sword clattered to the ground as he was thrown off balance, sliding to his knees. Looking down at his disarmed son, he remarked with a hint of approval that X was truly giving the fight his all. He looked up, a defiant smirk playing on his lips. He hadn't expected his father to fight with such killing intent, but he observed that Vector, too, was holding nothing back. His father issued a challenge, beckoning him forward. He declared his intention to test the full extent of X's current power. The duel's aftermath was a scene of utter destruction. A woman identified as Viscountess Makana surveyed the ruined training grounds and sternly told both men they needed to reflect. While she acknowledged that X had grown strong, she demanded to know who was foolish enough to cause such damage. X immediately took responsibility, apologizing and explaining it was his idea. Her tone softened slightly as she noted he had been through a lot recently, asking if he was okay. He listens as his mother, Makina, observes that he seems to have changed, appearing like a completely different person. She vows not to cause trouble for the Viscount's family and promises that once she has eliminated everything standing in the way of Alice's happiness, things will settle down. Reaching out to touch his cheek, she assures him that no matter what happens, he will always be her son. He quietly thanks her. Sometime later, he and Alice stroll through a bustling town square, the air filled with the chatter of the crowd. Alice gazes at him, her expression filled with awe as she thinks to herself what an amazing person he is. She learns that this entire area is land his father acquired as a reward for his service in the war. X explains that his father, devoted to his mother, refused both a promotion to Earl and a marriage to the princess, choosing this territory instead. Alice is struck with wonder at such a romantic gesture. He turns his attention back to Alice, complimenting how cute she looks and noting that any attire suits her. As he takes her hand and asks if they should continue, a nearby woman recognizes him, exclaiming how much the young master has grown. They stop at a craftsman's stall, where an older man greets X as the little master. X warmly greets him back as uncle and formally introduces the young woman beside him. "This is my fiancée, Alice," he says, as Alice offers a polite greeting. The artisan realizes the rumors were true, that X had taken her from the prince. With a radiant smile, X pulls Alice closer and announces that he couldn't suppress his feelings. He declares that his longtime first love has come true, and he is now truly happy. Upon hearing his heartfelt confession, the surrounding townsfolk erupt into a chorus of cheers, congratulating X and his new fiancée. As they continue their walk, an elderly food vendor offers them a skewer of dango, insisting it's a congratulatory gift for their engagement and refusing payment. X gratefully accepts. Nearby, Alice's eyes are drawn to a beautiful piece of jewelry on display. Her attention settles on a pair of simple, shining rings. Noticing her interest, X quietly asks if she's found something she likes. She shyly confirms that she has. He gently takes her hand and tells her he would like to buy them. As Alice begins to protest, he insists, saying, "Let me give it to you as a memento of today." He explains that he thought of the simple ring as a substitute until they could get their official wedding rings. Alice gazes at it, her hands clasped, and tells him she is happy to receive any gift from him and will treasure it. As she holds his hand, she says that in return, she would like to grant him a request. His eyes widen in surprise, and he seems to refuse outright. Before she can elaborate, the peaceful moment is shattered. X moves in a blur, sweeping Alice into his arms as an armed assailant falls behind them. He tells her he will carry her like a princess, and that she must keep her eyes closed no matter what. He rushes forward, only to be confronted by more men. One of them mocks him, questioning if he can act so mighty while carrying a burden. X glares, retorting that she is not a burden. Another man warns him that they were ordered to beat him up and tells him to get lost. In response, an attacker swings a club, but X blocks it with his forearm, shielding Alice from the blow. He simultaneously kicks another assailant away. As the leader yells for his men to at least grab the woman, X holds her tighter, declaring that she is a precious person to him. He stands his ground, his gaze cold and unwavering. He gives the men an ultimatum: surrender before he counts to 10, and he will spare their lives. However, he warns, if they harm Alice, they will say goodbye to this world. He challenges anyone with the resolve to come at him. Moments later, the threat is gone. Standing on the quiet street, X apologizes to Alice for scaring her. She looks up at him and insists he has done nothing wrong, reminding him that he was protecting her. Her words seem to spark a realization. He sighs, concluding that he can only think of one person who holds a grudge against him. He then tells Alice there's one last place he'd like to go and asks her to keep her eyes closed for what is about to happen. She agrees without hesitation. He asks for her permission to lift her, and she affirms. With that, he gently sweeps her up into his arms once more. After a moment, he tells her she can open her eyes. As she does, they widen in pure astonishment at the sight before her, and she lets out a gasp of wonder. She found herself in what was said to be the most beautiful flower field in the area, held securely in X's arms. Looking out over the endless blossoms towards a grand estate in the distance, she could only whisper in amazement. Petals drifted on the breeze as he gently set her down, his gaze fixed solely on her. She asked how long he intended to carry her, playfully calling him mean when he offered to let her down. He simply smiled and asked if she was sure she wanted that. She pleaded with him not to treat her like a child. With a sudden shift in his demeanor, he leaned closer and asked if she would prefer he treat her like an adult instead. Her eyes widened in surprise at his words. He drew her into a firm embrace, closing the distance between them. Leaning in, he offered to treat her even more like an adult. Flustered, she quickly refused, insisting she was fine. He pulled her into another embrace, holding her tightly. He confessed his love for everything about her, her cute sides, her resilience, and all her flaws. As he held her, Alice wondered to herself if it was selfish to not want to return home. She returned the hug, her own feelings pouring out. She wanted to be by his side, close to him, and vowed to never let go of his hand, no matter how many years or decades passed, even into the next life. As he held her, a firm resolve settled within him. He knew he must become stronger, vowing to always remain by her side. He needed the strength to protect Alice, to reach a place where no one could ever interfere with him again. As they approached the grand estate, a maid stood waiting for them on the steps. He stands on a cobblestone street, his gaze directed upward toward a hanging sign depicting a crossed knife and fork. The formal uniform is gone, replaced by a simple vest and shirt, as he waits in the quiet of the street. Pushing open a door, he steps inside, the clinking sound of a bell announcing his arrival. A young man with light reddish-brown hair, Gates Misty, greets him with a warm smile, a wine glass in hand. Gates welcomes him, noting that it has been a while and that he has been waiting for him.